Tout d'abord, je voudrais remercier l'organisation.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank the organization for inviting us. We are a privately owned company based in Normandy, and we are very happy to be part of this discussion about positive economics. We think it's key. This morning somebody said that talking about malnutrition is a very unpleasant topic because it connects to our compassion, our sensitivity, and it also makes us react, and very often it scares us. The first time I met malnutrition, I was 11 years old, I was living in Senegal, and this is exactly what happened in me. I was attracted, I wanted to do something about it, I thought it was absolutely unacceptable, but I was scared and I didn't know what to do. So what is malnutrition? Well, malnutrition is certainly not only a lack of food. You have immediate causes, such as inadequate food intake in terms of quality and or quantity. A child who eats corn all day might have his belly full, but obviously he will not have the necessary nutrients for growing properly. An immediate cause could also be a disease. You could think TB, you could think malaria, you can think AIDS. So many diseases which are present in countries where there's a lot of malnutrition. Then you've got the family environment. Sometimes it's a very complex situation. Maybe the child wasn't breastfed by the mom. Maybe the child did not have access to vaccination. Maybe there are some digestion problems that create diarrhea. Diarrhea is what kills the highest number of infants in the world. And then there is also a society issue. The government that does not set up a healthcare policy, the farming policy that does not generate enough diversity, lack of access to education. Malnutrition is 850 million people in the world who suffer hunger. 165 million are children who are chronically malnourished, meaning that they will have cognitive disorders and stunting, and this is something that they will never recover from. And a very great number of them have acute malnutrition. These are the kids that you see on TV, which are at great risk of dying. Where do we find malnutrition? Mostly in Africa. You all have seen these pictures of kids in camps in Kenya or Somalia. Also in India, mind you, 50% of kids suffering acute malnutrition today are in India, Southeast Asia. And talking about Africa, 50% of those kids in Africa are in Nigeria. So, in 1986, Michel Lescal, who is our founder and CEO, my dad, created Nutriset. And he created this company because he was working with my grandfather at the time in the 1980s. My grandfather had created Mami Nova, the yogurts, and they started working with MSF, Doctors Without Borders, or the Red Cross, on specific protein bars in order to fight against malnutrition, because they realized at the time that those kids, I'm talking about kids, but actually the real term should be vulnerable populations. But of course, it's mostly children, infants under the age of 5. They are the most vulnerable, of course, to malnutrition. And in the 80s, the researchers have started to actually define what the actual needs of these children were. And then I don't know if you remember, you had the Trucks of Hope, Les Camions de l'Espoir, who started off in 1984 to go to Mali, Niger, and Mauritania. And then my dad's company, it was not his core business. So in 1986, he found that there was a need, that there were researchers working on that there were some programs that were starting to operate. And so he is an entrepreneur. So he has the enterprise spirit, and he knew that a privately owned company in the agri-food business could come up with innovative solutions at the cheapest possible price. At the time, we had only food surplus, cereals or milk, when there was milk. But, in Europe, it was stuff that had not been consumed in Europe that went for food aid to Africa. So we know that it's a global market for those food produce. So when we did not have them, of course, it was even scarcer for Africa. And then we got fortified milk. That is, in hospitals, they would mix milk powder with oil and sugar and mineral and vitamins. they would apply a WHO formula to give formula milk to the kids. But of course, if a child is vulnerable and you give him too much vitamin, it will create diarrhea. So it was a very sensitive balance to find. And the first thing that Nutriset did was to come up with ready-to-use therapeutic formula milk, where you only had to add water. You only had to add water, but we all know that it's very difficult in those countries because you've got a lot of hygiene issues, and so it meant that you had to have nurses to be able to actually mix the product. Now, in 1993, there was Rwanda. You know, very often innovations come after a very important event. And in 1993, in the Democratic Republic of Congo and in Rwanda, in the Great Lakes region, the camps were too dangerous at night, so the nurses had to go back. And when they came back in the morning, they had the early morning death. All those children who could not have been taken care of during the night. And so we thought that we needed to have a ready-to-use product that could actually get the moms to take care of their children again. And so in 1996, we came up with Plumpy Nut, which is this little bag here. The kid can just open it and eat it. It's a paste with peanut, vegetable oil, minerals and vitamins. It is based on WHO guidelines to treat severe malnutrition. But the difference is that it's something that moms can actually give to their kids at home. With this product, it was used for the first time in Niger at a large scale in 2005, and we managed to treat 5,000 children. Last year, 5.3 million children were actually treated for acute malnutrition by UN organizations such as UNICEF or the World Food Programme. Governments also are starting to take care of that, and it's now accessible to many more children. And with this product, I'm talking about treating malnutrition. But we all agree that treating malnutrition is not a solution. You've got to do it, of course, because those kids might die. They are in an intolerable situation. But it's not the only solution. We should prevent malnutrition. So I talked about 165 million children who suffer chronic malnutrition during the first 1,000 days of conception, the first 3 months of the woman's pregnancy, and their first 2 years of life. They will suffer lacks, and they will never recover from that. So how do you get to that level of malnutrition, and how do you tackle it? Well, we have decided that we had to help countries or regions to achieve nutritional autonomy. How would you define this? Well, it's the capacity of a country or region to meet its own nutritional needs in terms of research and in terms of production. So what we can do is producing, and we can also pass on this knowledge. You've seen the map of malnutrition. Since 2005, we have developed a network of producers. It's in the form of an industrial franchise. And these producers, inside their countries, they can produce Plumpy Nut mostly, but there's a whole range of other products also that will meet the needs of their country. That is, if you look in the long term, the UNICEF and the United Nations should not stay in the countries. If they want to go out of the country, it means that the local government has to be capable of handling malnutrition on its territory. So it means that they have to have local production. The government, instead of saying that children are dying in their country, now they look at this company which can actually solve the problems of its own country. And so Plumpy Field, as you can see, is present in the countries where you have the highest level of malnutrition: Haiti, Burkina, Sudan, Ethiopia, Tanzania, India, etc. All those countries where you have a lot of malnutrition. And so in those countries, we have a real economic system. Well, this slide is very busy, very complicated, of course, and I'm sure that some of you are economists or mathematicians, so you would understand what I'm talking about, but I am not sure I can explain, actually. So it's just to tell you that it's not a patchy little project that we've started here and there. It's just a real business model based on the know-how of a northern company and donors, and we have set up a whole economic system. And we have created more than 500 jobs. We have really managed to improve the farming system in the countries because, of course, we have very high quality standards and requirements. So we've managed to improve the quality of some farming systems. In terms of services, well, there are a lot of companies that provide services to the food industry. In Ethiopia, for example, there's a huge microbiological analysis lab that was set up because we needed to analyze all those products. And so, thanks to that, we can export raw materials because we certify the quality with this lab. So it can be exported to other countries. Since 2005, it's 130 million euros in turnover for the whole network. And what is important for us, and where it connects with positive economy and what Jacques Attali talked about, is that more than 3 million children have been taken care of with this. At Nutriset, we always say that we have a mission, which is to feed children. Of course, we could say now feeding vulnerable populations, but this mission is not only something that we write on paper, it's our solution to the lack of legal framework in a company, because very often a company is defined by the shareholders, by the financial results, by the bottom line. But of course it's important, because if we were not making money, we could not carry out all those projects. But the bottom line is not the only success indicator for a company. So for us, the indicator is the number of kids that we treat every year. As the managing director of Nutriset, I am evaluated on the financial results that I produce, but also on the number of children, on how much we have improved access to these solutions throughout the world. And just to illustrate Plumpyfield and how it works, I would like to tell you about the case of Niger. In 2005, we met Fatima Cissé. She's a pharmacist. It's a very beautiful story. She's a pharmacist in a Muslim country, and then she got divorced. She went to study pharmacy in France with her 3 children. She was in charge of the board of directors of the greatest pharmaceutical cooperative in Niger, so she's a very impressive woman. And you see, she wanted to do something about malnutrition in her country, but she didn't have the technology to do that, and she didn't have the know-how to do that. And so we went along with her, we supported her throughout the years, we supported her financially, because access to fundings in those countries is very complicated. If you want to borrow money, the interest rate would be 30%. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Niger, it took us 2 years to get a loan from a bank, which actually comes from European funds, and so they ask for a lot of paperwork, and this is not something that a Nigerian company can provide. So, and also she needed a little bit more general know-how, management control, accounting, that type of things, which would enable her to run a company. So then, in 2010, there was the second phase, which was the building of the new plant. This is the largest food produce plant in Niger. It's the same technology that we're using for Nutriset in France. It's the same know-how, but of course in a much more adverse environment. Because if I was to manage STA in Niger, I don't know how I would do it. I don't know how I would do it to get the products to arrive on time, etc. It's very complicated. And last year, for the first time, the programs required 2,760 tons of Plumpy'N'Up in Niger, and STA was able to provide just all of this, meaning that 100% of the demand of the country was covered by the local company. It's really our pride. It's just to show you that it's not just an anecdote, but it is a viable economic solution. You can also help the countries grow based on private enterprise. So, I've talked about Plumpy'Nut. This is what STA produces in Niger, together with the UN Children's Fund. I must say that without them, we could not have done that. Because, of course, we needed a client who believed in that. But here we're still talking about treating malnutrition. Now, if we want to move farther in the future, we have to think prevention. And then prevention, that's no longer an emergency situation. It's no longer the UN. It's no longer NGOs, which we are familiar with, but we are stepping into the unknown because everybody tries to reach to those populations. Everybody has their definition. Everybody wants to go into social marketing. Ooh, what an ugly word. Anyway, everybody is trying to find a system to reach these populations, which today are not part of a normal market. And you can't believe that you're going to have prevention just with United Nations programs or emergency programs. So today, just like many others, we're trying to look at the type of products because we know what nutritional value is required. 20 grams of a product, which is called Nutri Butter, and if somebody takes 20 grams of this per day, with education, vaccination, and breastfeeding, we know it's going to work. But we don't know who is going to administer it, who is going to buy it. Are we going to go through a hybrid distribution system? We have to work with the local health policies. Maybe we need to work with international donors, such as Gates, for example, to finance some equipment. We don't know the communication, the awareness campaigns that have to be set up. We don't know how to manage to get these mothers to understand that through prevention, her kid will work better at school. You know, I have children and I know that I should brush their teeth and I never do, or not every day anyway. So what does this mean? Prevention. It's so different in all the countries. And this is vital. The UNICEF says that if we invest $1 in prevention, we're going to have to invest $30 less in development policies. Because, you know, those kids will suffer stunting, those kids will be hungry when they get to school, and then they will be weak and not capable of following what the school mistress is saying. It's also a great lack of productivity for the country as a whole. So that's what we do. And just a few words about where we are today and in connection with positive economy. Well, in our network, we have NGOs, we have social entrepreneurs who have received a lot of prizes. Americans and in Haiti, they have received a lot of rewards. We have businessmen in Ethiopia, for example. And when somebody from an NGO says to you, oh, this one is a businessman, well, I can tell you that this doesn't sound too good. But anyway, this businessman, this social entrepreneur, were capable of making this product available to those kids, and it's a product that is going to save their lives or that is going to give them a future and to give their country a future. So what I want to say really is whatever tool you're using, social enterprise must be there. Whatever the tool, what matters is what you do with it and where you want to go with it. Thank you.